All right, let's move on to, I'm sure, a lot of people's favorite fight of the night. A lot of people in Abu Dhabi were very happy. Let's get into those fights.
Yes.
Islam Makhachev versus Dan the Hangman Hooker. Oh my goodness. Just domination station.
Yeah, absolutely.
It didn't even give Hooker a chance.
No.
It wasn't the dominance that we saw the fight before, but it was fucking, like, I mean, the 2 fights before with the Hamzat stuff, but it was very, very close. Very dominant. I don't think Islam took any damage.
No, I don't think he did either. I mean, he essentially took Dan down right away.
And immediately just ragdolled him.
Yeah, just ragdoll. I mean, did exactly what he wanted to do against him, and there was no chance for Dan to try to defend that submission. But I do want to talk about this because it is controversial, and I just want you to hear me out on this. Okay, was that fight over? Yes, I'm not arguing that. I'm really not. However, it's a slippery slope when a referee can determine whether or not someone is submitted and whether or not someone is giving up in a fight, okay? Now, I understand there are a few different ways that you can tap, one of those being verbal, okay? When you're in a compromised position and maybe your other hand is trapped, you cannot tap, so you have to verbally tap. My understanding was there was no verbal tap from Dan Hooker. Now, again, do I think Dan Hooker was getting out of that submission? No, of course not. But you have to give the fighter an opportunity, and you have to allow that fighter to make his own choices. If Dan thought he could get out of that submission, which I don't think he could, but if he thought that, you have to give him that opportunity to try and get out. Because what's going to happen down the road when these referees start, a choke's deep and the guy's like, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, he's not. He'll pull it off. It's over. Or an arm's caught and you think, I mean, there have been so many arm bars that I've seen in the UFC where I'm like,
arm snapped.
How about this? Tony Ferguson as well. We thought his arm fucking snapped.
And he got out.
Yeah.
And his shit was bent backwards.
It was
That's
bent
a great
backward
point.
and it was gross. I was like, oh my God, his arm's broke. Still fought. And it did enough, and the arm wasn't broke, but we all thought it was. There was also that situation where we thought that guy's arm was broke. I forget who it was, but his elbow just popped out for a second. So there's a lot of situations where you can literally bring up and be like, hey, I'm glad the ref didn't step in. This is just a slippery slope when you start calling fights before the fighter verbally taps.
No,
This is a mano-a-mano sport, and you have to allow that fighter every opportunity. The second he calls tap, then you call the fight. But I did not agree with that stoppage. As far as like for the health and safety of Dan Hooker, yes, I agree with that. But again, you're a ref. Your job is to stop the fight when you hear a tap. There was no tap. I didn't like that stoppage. If the fighter wants to go out on a shield, even if that means a year and a half of recovery because he's got a torn ligaments or a broken arm, you have to let that man go out on a shield. You have to. And yes, there are different situations where if a guy's getting his ass beat, and you throw in the towel. I'm not saying that, but in these scenarios when that guy thought he could potentially get out, you got to let that fight continue until he verbally taps. That's just my opinion.
I agree 100,000% with everything you just said. But I'm going to play a little bit of devil's avocado here. A little bit of devil's advocate.
Nice.
You knew it. I knew it. The ref knew it. Islam knew it. Dan knew it. He wasn't getting out. Mm-hmm. His arm was going to get snapped in half. And, we just got to chat here. Shout out to Imad Amri. I'm fucking I'm destroying your name. I'm sorry. Imad Amri or whatever. Hey, referees are there for fighter safety first. He could have broken his arm. It could have been a career-ending injury. He's got a point. The referee did save him from himself, which is his job. But there's been a lot of different situations in the UFC where you've seen people get out of stuff that they shouldn't have.
So what if the ref would have called that in all those scenarios?
And in that aspect, I absolutely agree.
It's not.
It's just, the man was doing his job, really. And he was putting the fighter's safety above the fight, which is what he did.
And again, I don't hate it, and I understand it.
Yeah.
It's just I don't want this to become the new trend.
Yeah.
Where this kind of stuff is happening all the time. Obviously, we know Islam's record. We know the ground game fiend that he is, the submissions that he can put you in and completely break your arm and make you miserable the whole time you're fighting him. And Islam won that fight. He was going to win that fight. We saw that from the ring of the bell as soon as he took him down. So I'm not arguing with that. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it in this situation. I just do not want to see this become a trend. That's all I'm trying to say.
I understand that.
That's because it's gonna get very interesting when you start having guys like Tony Ferguson when he was in that arm bar, and then they're calling it over and over and over again before guys tap. Because what's the point of having a tap if a referee can just step in and call the fight, tap or not? So again, in this scenario, I'm fine with it. He protected the fighter. He did what he had to do. I'm not mad at it. But I just don't want to see it anymore. That's all I'm saying.
And, you almost have to mention the fact that there was a referee that got kicked off the card earlier because of the prelims. I mean, there was a fight that needed to be stopped, and the guy didn't.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe that had something to play with it. Maybe they went, hey, guys, stay on your fucking ones and twos, stay on your toes, because this shit just happened, and, this guy could fucking have severe damage because of it, and he fucked up.
And you know
maybe
what?
That could have played a big factor into that.
That's actually a great point that you make there, and that's something that, now thinking about it, may have factored into that to that call of making that call. Like, that's a very good point. That's a very good point, because earlier that night, that fight should have been stopped. That was egregious. That guy was getting his ass beat. You have needed someone to step in.
You have to look at every situation differently. It's just because it's such an individual sport, and every situation is different. Every fight plays out differently. Like, you can't have a blanket rule where you see this, you have to stop it or not, because there are so many different situations that we've been in the past where people have gotten out of stuff where they have, and people have snapped their arms or have had their shit broken when you thought they were fine. It's a very tricky situation. Like we always say, guys, reffing in MMA, it's the hardest job to do.
Absolutely.
It's the most criticized job to do besides maybe judging, which isn't the hardest job to do. Get your shit together, judges, please. It's fucking egregious, some of the shit you do.
Pisses me off.
It's horrible, and it ruins careers. But you know what? I'm going to say it. I agree with you. I feel bad for Dan because he didn't even get the opportunity to get out of there, but we all know he wasn't going to. He was about to have his career drastically affected by that horrific arm injury that could have happened from that Kimura. And it was locked in, man. He was not getting out. So at the same time, I wish Dan would have had his opportunity, but I'm kind of at least a little bit happy he didn't, because now we still get to see Dan Hooker be healthy and come back here pretty soon instead of being off a year.
And those are the positives.
Absolutely.
For sure.
There's positives and negatives with every situation, I feel like. So shout out to Dan Hooker for being a man. I hope he got heavily compensated for that fight, but I knew this was coming, man. Islam is the next big thing at the lightweight division. He's calling for a title fight. He wants to fight in Abu Dhabi for the title. Dana White says, you know what? That's not a bad idea. That sounds about right. So here's my prediction. Quarter 4, 2022, you will see Islam Makhachev fighting for the world lightweight title in Abu Dhabi as a main event. Mark my words, regardless of who wins Poirier-Oliveira, that fight will be made.
If Islam Makhachev gets a title shot, there's no better place on planet Earth in Abu Dhabi than Fight Island, man. I mean, you are going to make the most money humanly possible, having all those super rich, wealthy individuals. At that fight, man. So you get an Islam title fight, absolutely. Totally agree with you. It's got to be in Abu Dhabi, got to be on Fight Island, and that fight is ginormous. That fight is huge. I mean, we are looking at potentially the next Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's how good Islam is in this lightweight division.
Absolutely. He's the next big thing, dude. It is what it is. He's going to have to fight one more time. I think that's what they're going to end up doing.
So let's talk about the lightweight division now, as we just did with the bantamweights. That's why we do this podcast. We're big fans. We love talking about this. All right. So December 11th, UFC 269 is Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier for the undisputed lightweight belt. We also have Justin Gaethje at 2, Michael Chandler at 4. They're fighting this week, which we will preview here very shortly. That's 2 and 4. You also have Beneil Dariush at number 3. So are we doing a mini kind of tournament here? Do you think, now you just said that Islam has to take one more fight, and I actually agree with you. I think one more fight is very realistic, especially with this massive fight between Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler that I think everyone's wanted to see for a very long time. When Chandler was coming in, everyone's like, oh, Gaethje versus him would be great. So we're getting that. That's a huge fight. I like Beneil Dariush. Beneil has been on a streak here. He's been on a bit of a run. And if he could beat an Islam Makhachev, he'd make a very strong case for the next contender for the belt. But Islam goes out there and beats a guy who's on a hot streak like Beneil. It's a really good argument, right? So the winner of Gaethje versus Chandler, winner of Makhachev versus Dariush. What do you think about Dariush? Do you like that?
I love that matchup. I mean, ideally, the ideal situation for Islam Makhachev, 9-fight win streak, by the way. He should be just fighting for the belt right away. He shouldn't have to fight one more time, but he's going to.
Right.
He's going to have to. I don't see, let's just say devil's advocate, let's say Oliveira beats Poirier. If Justin Gaethje beats Michael Chandler, I mean, he might be slotted right there for the next title fight.
Yeah.
Which I think Islam's in a situation where he should probably wait a little bit just to find out what happens here with that title situation. Michael Chandler wins that fight. Oliveira wins that fight. Then you do Beneil Dariush, Islam Makhachev, number one contender. Michael Chandler's not getting the title fight or release an immediate rematch with Oliveira that soon. But, I mean, a Gaethje victory is huge. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, you know.
I think you have to notch them into. It just depends. If Poirier wins the belt, he's fighting Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje. He's not fighting Islam Makhachev.
Interesting. So I do want to talk about that. I do agree in the sense because Charles just beat Michael. So if Michael were to beat Justin, that wouldn't be a good immediate rematch, right? So you would go with the winner of Beneil Dariush Islam if Michael were to win that fight. However, if Gaethje wins and Dustin wins, I do think that's the matchup to make for the undisputed lightweight belt. I actually agree with you there. But that kind of puts Islam in a tricky spot, right?
Where he just fights Beneil and waits.
Yeah, he's going to have to wait. Yeah, he'll have to wait for his next shot. I mean, because
there's so many situations.
He's not going to fight Michael Chandler if he comes off a loss, and there's no sense. I mean, maybe Charles Oliveira if he loses his belt.
Yeah, I think he could fight the loser if he doesn't do Beneil. I mean, you got to say yes to Islam. Very difficult. Now you do. It's undisputed. This guy's top 5 lightweight in the world. You can't dance around him. He is in your face in this division. No one can turn him down anymore. He's earned the right to be here. He's earned the right to be a top 5 guy. That's why I love it. No one can turn him down anymore. So, hey, you want a shot at the title? You got to fight Islam. That's who you got to fight. They're all going to be like, I would just stay at number 2.
Yep.
I don't want to fight that guy. The first person to say yes and beat Islam is getting a title shot, period. I don't care what the fuck your number is. You beat Islam Makhachev, you're getting a title shot.
Absolutely.
It is what it is there.
Shout out to Ahmad Amir. Hey, love you guys. You think Islam can stand with Poirier? That's a very interesting question. It's funny because we were just talking about this last week where we think Islam, as far as the striking department, actually probably had the advantage over Habib Nurmagomedov. The wrestling, that's kind of debatable. We will have to see Islam's career the more he goes down. But I would have to say on that, I don't think he needs to. I think stick to what you know, stick to what you're good at. And I think Islam would take Dustin Poirier down. I don't think he would stand with him for 5 rounds. I mean, am I wrong there? Do you think Islam wouldn't go for a shot?
I mean, look at it on paper. Let's go back and look at the Habib versus Poirier fight. I mean, Habib's striking obviously isn't on the level of Dustin Poirier, obviously. And I would say the same as Islam, obviously isn't on the level of Dustin Poirier. But the wrestling credentials are so high level that opens opportunities up for big strikes, which is what happened in that Khabib Poirier fight. Dustin had respected Khabib's wrestling so well that Khabib was actually finding success on the feet.
Well, that's what I was about to say, too.
Could be the same thing with Islam. He has such a wrestling threat that, yes, he can find success on the feet with these elite high-level strikers, but let's be real. He's just going to take him down and smash him. That's what the guy does.
Yep. And that's the thing, too. Like, we do have to put some respect on Habib's striking because it did look a lot better in those last fights. But again, do what you're best at. You don't have to play their game. Play your game because you're the champ. You're 29-0, And that's kind of the same way I feel with Islam Makhachev. Do what you do best. Mm-hmm. Don't fall into the trap of trying to be, the better striker or whatever. I think he can compete with the best of the best because his striking looks really good. But again, do what you're best at. And Islam Makhachev is best at smashing. That's what he does. He smash. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all he's got to do. But I love those matchups, man. I cannot wait for the future of Islam Makhachev in this lightweight division.
Yeah, we got to get moving on because we're going to be an hour into this recap.
Are you shitting me?
We're 45 minutes.
45 minutes into this?
We've only been 3 fights. Dude,
wow.
We got serious issues, guys. We love the sport.
Yeah, too much.
It.
Yeah,
it's
we just
religion.
ramble on and on. Holy hell.